I mean, we're getting like I think like the biggest rivalry that I know of between two teams. Like obviously there's got to be some jabs. You guys behaved really well last week, so I was
That's fair.
it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball podcast. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and I guess pretty much move into part 2 of the NCDA championships recap. And joining me once again, and needing no introduction, is Felix Perroni and Kevin Bailey. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on again. And man, what a weekend. From the recap that I took with Hunter and Colin and his buddies, it just sounded like pretty much like what you guys hyped up. It sounded like a pretty incredible event. And, before I go on, Felix, like, what are your thoughts? Like, now that it's over with, are you relieved? Just kind of, what's it feel like over there?
Yeah, I'm really happy that everything went smoothly. I was surprised that on Saturday I think we finished like 20 minutes behind schedule, which is pretty incredible for how many games we had played. So there were a total of 33 games played on Saturday, 21 played on Sunday. Had a few injuries, but nothing people won't recover from or won't keep them from recovering from.
So your typical dodgeball injury, unfortunately, it's just kind of par for the course. Yeah,
pretty much. But everything went great. We had a new team, University of Cincinnati. They played their first nationals this year. So we were pretty excited. They got their first win this weekend as well. And we saw a lot of positive results. But I think the best thing that came out of this weekend was the stream from Mad City. They did an excellent job. I was not prepared for the amount of equipment they brought and how much, how professional it was. It was absolutely insane.
It looked awesome. It looked very polished, and seeing. I made the joke earlier about how we're not going to compliment Kevin, but seeing Kevin's get up, because I was watching some of the finals when I could. I mean, it looked like a freaking sportscast. And I know I talked about back in like 2006-07 seeing this on Fox Sports Network, but it looked like a legitimate sporting event. And that's, I mean, I guess that's what they bring to the table. Kevin, what was that like? Just commentating. Was this your first time doing that, or can you kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and like Felix said, they blew us away with just the amount of equipment and just what they brought to the table for us. But I've commentated in the past just on one of those smartphone streams that we would have, various things like that. But this was just so much higher level, and they brought in so many different things. They gave us a bunch of different camera angles, as you saw, and then they even brought in a guy named Gar, who was a legitimate commentator, to help make it more, professional. So overall, it went way better than any of our expectations for the Mad City stream. So we couldn't be happier with how well we worked with them and the amount of effort they put into it. It was amazing.
And the professionalism that they brought to the table. Yep. I was going to ask Gar. I have not heard that name, so he was just a complete outsider from dodgeball. Like, he hasn't played before.
Yeah, he was.
So go ahead. I was
going to say, they brought him in just because he is a color commentator, and the idea was, let's have someone who is comfortable enough to ask a lot of questions and to keep the conversation flowing, but they don't know enough about the sport where they're going to be asking the same kind of questions that people who may be tuning in for the first time, they would be asking. So I think it really worked out. He was excellent at his job. And I never do this, but I have to give props to Kevin as well. I was going back and watching some of the stream, and I think even Kevin did a good job this weekend with commentating. And what I was most surprised with was how neutral he was able to be during the championship match when his alma mater was playing, and nothing slipped. It wasn't like you were actually rooting for Grand Valley. So that's the only time I'll ever compliment you in your life. So
and it's recorded,
store,
so you'll have
store
this
that away
forever. Was that hard, Kevin? Like just comment. What's the term? Is it commentating? Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay, so was commentating for your team difficult? Like, were you able to pull yourself out of that and present an unbiased account of what's going on? Because again, man, you sounded really good. I didn't detect any bias at all, and I just wondered, like, how hard is it for him to restrain that? But what was that like, watching your team?
Well, thank you, and yeah, going back to kind of what Felix said, Gar did an amazing job to sort of set it all up to be such a great commentary dynamic between the two of us. And the day before, he showed up for day one of nationals, and we sort of had to just download everything for him in terms of his knowledge of our sport. So it was pretty exciting to like watch him learn from a bunch of different alumni as he was watching games and figure out how the game is played and how exactly we commentate it. He watched us commentate some games just on our iPhones pretty much. So
dang.
But yeah. Day two, when I was commentating, it was definitely tough when it was Grand Valley, and I don't know. I don't want to get into that too much, but it was hard for me to watch GVSU lose because as an alumni, I obviously was pulling for them. But at the same time, and this is something I've mentioned to some Towson alumni since then, as a member of the NCDA board, it was the best thing for our league was to see a team like Towson win the championship. So while I was really sad for Grand Valley, at the same exact time while I was commentating, that was me genuinely being excited because it was such a monumental moment for our league and especially for that team that I watched them develop from being one of the worst teams in the league and an absolute afterthought to the leaders of the team just sticking with it and getting to the point where they were able to compete for a national championship. So I was genuinely excited for them. So it wasn't like it was me trying to be fake in any way. It was just me having to sort of separate those two different emotions of me being sad for my own team and happy for someone else.
Yeah, no, that's a tall order. I mean, and to be able to, differentiate, your personal bias versus what's good for the organization and be proud of, Townsend's accomplishment. That's awesome, man. Obviously talking to them during the recap, they were still pretty excited and from the kid's dorm or his apartment, they looked like they were still celebrating the victory a couple days after the fact. And yeah, I mean, I've got nothing but good things to say about it. I wish I could have just seen it from the beginning. Talking to you guys really hyped me up for it, and it gave me people to care about. And even with the recap, I just feel like I know more about the schools and their history, and I'm already looking forward to next year and whether I can fly out and watch in the stands or tune in. Hopefully, Mad City will come back or something similar will be there. I'm bought in. Like, you guys really sold me on this, and I hope that people on the outside can look at this like we would be watching, college football or college baseball. And yeah, it's beyond, our, I'm obviously way too old for NCDA, but I can still appreciate the game, and it's fun to watch. It's very different, and the angles that were provided allowed you to kind of feel what was going on. And again, the commentary was just like, I might as well just be there and understand what's going on. So it was really great. And this Scar person to come into something he does not know and seem like he's been there since day one was pretty impressive too. Does he do like other events for Mad City? Like, is he just is he constantly doing other sports, or is there any more information about this guy, or like will we see him again, or do you know anything about him?
All I know is that he's from the Chicago area and that he was a swimmer in college. But other than that, I don't really know too much about him. So we keep mentioning Mad City, and I definitely want to also give a shout out to the production company that partnered with Mad City. So it was Mad City in partnership with Mainstream Media, and Mainstream Media is actually the ones that brought Gar with them. Okay. And they found him on like 4 days notice. Before that, we didn't even have anybody like that, and they just thought like, hey, I think this will be a good idea, and we've got a friend who's does this and is free that weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
this guy's really cool. I'll have to look him up on the social media. And before we get too into rabbit holes and whatnot, part of the reason why I wanted to round out part 2 with you guys is because as key personnel, board members and whatnot to the NCDA, I kind of just wanted to ask like what's next and kind of get your perspective on some of the things that I don't think the players themselves were able to cover. And so one of the things I wanted to know, actually, so I think I've been wrong this whole time. Is it National Collegiate, not college?
Yeah, Collegiate.
Yeah, I've gotten big bold letters like Collegiate. Like I had to clear that up, and I feel like an idiot now because I've been saying.
We technically go by both, but yeah.
Okay, I'll be forgiven if I say National College. Okay,
it gets the point across.
Yeah, I saw on the website. I was like, oh my god, this whole time. But well, let's talk about. They mentioned in the recap. There were some MVPs. Like they said, our take on the MVP of the game, or who we feel is the MVP. They threw out some names, but can you guys kind of talk about how that works? Like, when are we going to find out who the MVPs of the championships were, and what that process looks like?
Sure. So we will. The actual list, the All-American list and MVP will be announced in a couple weeks. We don't have a set date just yet. But basically our process for that is every single team that's in the league, whether they attended nationals or not, they are given one ballot, basically. So every team gets to list their top 12 ranked in order, the top 12 players in the country based not off nationals, but based off the entire season as a whole. And once we have the votes from every single team, we will calculate it out and get the top 12. In fact, we actually do the top 24, and we have a first team and a second team that we have announced. So that'll be – we don't have a set date for it yet. We'll announce that soon, but it'll be within the next couple weeks while it's still fresh in everyone's minds.
Gotcha. So MVP / All-American, is that one and the same? Or like what's the official term for it that you guys call it?
Yeah, so technically it is the All-American team is what will be shared, and just the number one team or the number one player on that list is given the MVP award for the season. So that's how we've done it since, I believe, 2011.
Yeah. Gotcha.
2012 actually.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So it's not determined on that day, like so and so is doing really well, so boom, MVP. It's got a process that your peers kind of elected you, and you kind of go through the motions that way. Are there any front runners, any names that we can talk about that are looking good, or is that still too soon to tell? We have like a sort of a list that the content team, whoever's writing articles, maybe they're doing podcasts, whatever it might be, will mention throughout the year. So we sort of have a good idea. I would say, in my personal opinion, I would give Brandon Meisel from Grand Valley the MVP award based off his body of work throughout the entire season. That would be my pick. I know I'm a bit biased in that area, but outside of him, I would say Austin Breggy, who he plays for Central Michigan. It was his final season as well, along with Meisel. I think that he shot up into the MVP consideration based off how well he played at nationals. So those would be my top two by far. And then there would be a little bit of a gap before the next group of people. And I should mention, Meisel plays for Dynasty, so there's my bias a little bit. But gotcha.
Austin Breggy actually plays for Notorious. I'm not sure if you are too aware of that team. They play in Elite as well in the North region.
Oh yeah, they looked like a bunch of bruisers, those guys.
Yeah,
I remember them.
So, he had a really, really good year. So I would put him up there. And outside of those two, a couple others that deserve mentioning would be Tom Morand, who basically restarted the club at Miami University. They went defunct, and he kind of brought them back to life and had a phenomenal season. And he's a junior. He plays for Ohio Legacy in Elite.
Oh, nice.
And then besides him, I think Jordan Watt, who was the top player for Towson. I'm sure you heard his name yesterday.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask about him.
He's great. He has a cannon of an arm. I wouldn't say he was the MVP as much as Meisel or Breggy might have been, but he definitely deserves to be in that top 5 without a doubt. And I think that some people will give him MVP votes. Mm-hmm. And then one more would be Kyle Bruce from Saginaw Valley. And that was his last tournament as well. He plays for Notorious. But he had a great year. He's so good at in the transition, the big full court dodgeball that we play. He's so good at when he's backpedaling, being able to just drop to his knees and make a catch, no matter where the throw's located. He's so good at that, and he was a crucial part of Saginaw Valley's success all season.
Nice. When I was watching the finals, I recognized Ben Smart from Grand Valley.
Yeah.
He played with us. He played with us on Grit last year. He was just like a last minute pickup, and it's funny because we're like, well, is this guy gonna be any good? And my captain he said, yeah, he plays NCDA. I was like, oh, this guy's good to go. Like, he's probably not afraid of anything. He can handle the crap that you guys sling at him. And it was awesome watching him scoop up, just catch after catch after catch, and then just kind of throwing it out there like it's like, you're welcome to his teammates. And there was a couple of games where you could tell he was still kind of getting used to the proximity of Elite and the fact that the course it's only 6v6 and whatnot. But I think after like our third or fourth game, he was just catching everything. It was awesome playing with him, and I think he's actually playing with Grit a little bit this season. But I just wanted to give him a shout out because watching him earlier today, I was like, oh yeah, I know that guy. Like, I play with him. And that's a testament to the transferability of skills from one court to the other. But you just triggered my memory there. But so I won't say like they're your picks, but just your input was Austin Breggy, you said?
Yeah, I would say Meisel at 1 and Breggy at 2. Those would definitely be my top 2, though. They both played phenomenally.
Nice.
Breggy, especially at Nationals, did a great job.
Very cool.
Yeah, Ben Smart. I would put Ben Smart in my top 12, definitely. I wouldn't say he's in the MVP consideration yet, but yeah. I mean, you'll enjoy this story. So he actually learned about dodgeball through Sky Zone when Dynasty would go to Sky Zone Grand Rapids and practice, and it was while he was still in high school.
Of course. And
that's kind of how he got into it, and he found out that Grand Valley had a team from there. So that's kind of what got him into dodgeball, was just through the UDC having teams, like legitimate dodgeball teams, go to Sky Zone to practice, and it kind of is helping grow the sport, and I think it will continue to, because there's so many kids that have learned of the sport through that. So that's pretty cool to see.
That is awesome. And what a time to like enter the dodgeball scene. Like you see it maybe on YouTube or through UDC at one of those centers, and you just walk right into your local college, and there's a club there that's been around for years, is looking as just like the best team out there, just championship after championship after championship, and you just hop on in. Next thing you know, you're going to Elite, you're going to these streamed games. That's definitely, and Felix, you can probably attest to this. That's kind of like a win for us old guys, for all the crap we had to go through to see dodgeball kind of get legitimized. But to see it through the eyes of a new player, or younger player, is pretty awesome. And
yeah, it's crazy that dodgeball is available now, because when we were starting out, you had to seek it out, and it just wasn't a good option. Like, most of the time, it was just like these terrible little pickup games or rec leagues that they just had like angry dads and retired firefighters at, and that was it.
Yep, just the dark days, the barnstorming days, as we call it. And we'll definitely have to, you and I, talk about that and just see what it was like for your region and get an OG panel going. But what about you, Felix? Do you have like a top 5 that you wanted to kind of shout out or talk to?
I would definitely say that my top 2 would be Meisel and Tom Morand. The reason I say Tom Morand in my top 2 is because he is a pivotal point for his team. I think that without Brandon, Grand Valley would still be successful. Without Tom, Miami would not be successful. He is I feel as if he is 35-40% of that team. He's an excellent player. He's dedicated to the game. He practices a lot, and he practices both styles, elite and NCDA, and he's dedicated to continuing in the off season. And so I really feel like he is a strong front runner for MVP in my mind. The other options that Brandon mentioned, or sorry, not Brandon, that Kevin mentioned are good too. Austin and Jordan. I didn't really see Kyle or Saginaw play this weekend, but I know historically he's always been very consistent, so I definitely agree with that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I'm curious when this comes out, and we'll see like who picked it. But I just have a feeling it's gonna be one of the five that Kevin listed off. So one thing that came up in the conversation yesterday was, and I kind of just wanted to get your quick take on it. And we can start with you, Felix. But we talked about, like, I guess the East had a more significant showing, or at least that's what Colin was saying. He was proud to see that because usually I think like the North, especially like the Michigan areas, it would be considered like the powerhouse. So, you know, like with Elite, we can say, I might get crapped on for this, but I'd be so bold to say when it comes to just regular 8.5, the West pretty much has like it. I would say we're the strongest. So, without opening up that can of worms, what would you say would be like the stronger region for the NCDA or state or area?
I still think Michigan, the state of Michigan, is definitely far and away better than the other regions just as a whole. But I mean, the East Coast is definitely coming up. They have very strong programs in all the schools, really. UVA is still developing, Virginia, but I mean, other than that, Towson, obviously, they just won the championship. James Madison has been they've been a top 4 contender every year since 2012. Maryland had a really, really good showing this weekend. Maryland used to be a pushover team, but they kind of went out there and surprised a lot of people this weekend, and I was really happy to see that because I know that they have a lot of guys that are graduating this year, and so I'm interested to see what the team looks like next year, but they surprised the heck out of me. And then I'm sure you heard about this with Hunter, but Virginia Commonwealth, they went 3-0, winning 3 overtime games on Saturday, and they played 3 people down all day, didn't have any substitutes. That was absolutely incredible. If they had a full squad, I really feel as if they would have gone a lot further into the bracket than they did.
They seeded 6th, right? And
to
do that undermanned, and that was a pretty awesome feat. It's kind of it's a bummer because, like you said, I wonder what it would look like if they had a full squad, because they definitely seemed gassed come Sunday. But as far as Saturday goes, that was a great showing.
But like the whole NCDA, and we did a short ceremony at the end of the semifinals where we honored the 2009 Grand Valley Dodgeball team. They went 111-0 in points for the year. They were undefeated. They were absolutely incredible. They were monsters at the time, and so we honored some of the older members who were there, and I asked their captain, Kelvin Coster, who plays on Task Force, formerly on Kraken, and I asked him, I said, what's the biggest difference in the NCAA between now and then in 2009 when they played? And he said the parity. He said every team is good now. He said obviously you have some that are in the top 4, but we don't have nearly the number of pushover teams that we used to back in the day. When I first started in the NCDA, I was at Western Kentucky, and we were a pushover team for sure. Teams would schedule games against us because they knew they would get the win. And then over the years, we eventually became like 3rd in the country, and we did well in the 2011 season. But there aren't as many pushover teams anymore. Everyone's taking dodgeball more seriously. They're playing an elite, they're playing other forms, staying active in the off season, realizing that watching game footage is a huge benefit.
Yeah, who would have thought watching game footage in practice makes you better? What a concept! And then working out now and conditioning, just good old hard work. Go figure. What about you, Kevin? What were your thoughts on like the regions? And the point of this is not really to be like divisive or say one region is better than the other. It's just to kind of, for people like myself, like, how to get excited when a team like Townsend from the East wins or from a different region. So it's just kind of helping me kind of understand the scene a little bit more.
I would agree with what Felix said. It's kind of crazy to say, our Final Four had 3 Michigan teams in it, and yet the East Coast was the big winners from nationals, but that's the truth. The NCDA has historically just been absolutely dominated by the Michigan region, and I think that at nationals we're averaging about 3 Michigan schools per year that make the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a whole, kind of like what Felix said, it's been awesome to see that middle of the pack of the NCDA sort of improve and become no longer pushovers. And all those East Coast teams were exactly that this weekend. They were improved, and they were better than what teams may have expected them to be, whether it was Towson, who ended up winning the whole thing, all the way to VCU, VCU was a team that was really doubted heading into nationals. Same with Maryland, and both of them came up with huge wins on the weekend. And then even to think that the second best team in the East wasn't even at nationals, the East Coast still had an amazing nationals. So it's exciting because it just means that, I guess you could use the word parity, because that's kind of where we're headed with NCDA. It's not what it was in the past, where there were a few teams that were the sure thing going to win every single game. We saw Grand Valley on day one of nationals go into overtime against Ohio. And Ohio was a team that my final year in 2016, they went 0-29. So it's just absolutely crazy to see how much teams are starting to improve, and it's exciting for the future of the sport.
That's awesome. And I think Colin mentioned that match. He said that was one of the that was one of the matches where like everybody kind of just froze and just wanted to see what was going to happen, because that was going to kind of set the tone for the weekend. It's like, is Ohio going to beat Grand Valley? And I mean, that's what you want, from an outside perspective, without your own bias or your own pulling for your team to win. Like you want to have, I imagine, that parity, and you want to have every final is going to be, it could be anybody's game. You don't want teams to necessarily get steamrolled. So that's probably, I mean, that's what we all want. I mean, even with Elite, like we want it to be like the best competition available. So when you see like 4 or 5 teams dominating everybody else, it's like, well, this is kind of getting old. So
yeah, I mean, even like I think those games like Grand Valley and Ohio in overtime, and then VCU beating Central Michigan in overtime, I really feel like it teaches a lesson to the top teams that they can't just mess around with other teams that they think are a sure win. Because I can't speak for the Grand Valley game, but I know that Central Michigan, when they played Virginia Commonwealth, they decided to play a point where all they wanted to do was go for catches. And so they weren't trying to hit anybody. They were just trying to make catches. And then that game got away from them. They lost the point. Then they lost the next point. And then it went into overtime. And Virginia Commonwealth, they didn't just beat Central Michigan in overtime. They dominated them. Virginia Commonwealth never had less than 6 players on the court. They had all 6 in the entire time because they caught everything. I think they caught 5 balls and hit 1 person out. And so it's a good lesson that the parity in the league is it's flattening. And so these historically top teams can't take other teams lightly.
Definitely.
Yeah. I would say one more thing on top of that. I think that some of the changes that the league has made over the last couple of years is sort of helping with that, to even the playing field and sort of just make the game more dynamic, where it can be anyone's game, and it's not going to just be a the better team scores a point and then they lull you to sleep by stalling it out. I think that us going to the dirty blocking rule or clean blocking rule, the same as what Elite has a little bit, and then shortening the roster size from 15 down to 12. Rules like that are sort of helping even the playing field a little bit, and it's kind of speeding up the process of our league reaching that sort of parity that is going to help us continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I do want to ask more about like what's next for the NCDA, but before I do that, just want to quick ask you guys, like, what was your favorite match or like your favorite moment? And you can start with this one, Kevin, from this weekend, or you can even go into this season. Just like, what was your overall favorite? Let's do moment.
Yeah. Favorite moment from the season as a whole would be a tournament at Akron University that was titled War, and that was my favorite moment because there were such a variety of teams there from every different region, it seemed, and there were some games that just went down to the wire. There were several games on the main court that went down to the last second or two, and it was awesome just because we had a live stream going that whole day and we caught so many of the best games. It was actually 2 days long, and that was sort of the point in the season where it just made everyone get super amped for the rest of the year, just because they saw some of these teams that usually wouldn't be able to compete with those Michigan schools being able to hang with them. So that was awesome. And then
nice.
From Nationals itself, I would say Grand Valley's Final Four game against Central Michigan will be my favorite moment because the stands were packed and it was so loud there. Cheering on both of those teams was awesome to watch everyone there. So I didn't have to commentate that one. We had someone else up there for that, so I got to sit in the stands with some alumni and friends, and it was just cool to sort of get that experience with them because it was such a fun game to watch, and the crowd was going wild the whole time.
It's awesome. So you actually got to cheer for them and enjoy it and be completely biased.
Exactly. Yeah. I had to use it all up in that game.
Just expend it while you could.
Yep.
That's one thing I'm realizing is really awesome. Like with these college-based teams, like they're, if everything goes well, they're going to be around a couple of years down the road. Whereas with elite teams, they're always rebranding, so it's kind of hard to be like, oh, I'm going to go watch my team that I used to play on 5-6 years ago. That doesn't really exist. So to have like an actual like lineage, I guess, for lack of better words, to know that Grand Valley is going to have alumni cheering for them, and like, oh, that was my squad back in the day. Like that's pretty much like creating like a legacy, and I think that's one thing that I really wish Elite would have more of. With the exception of some of the longer standing teams, but like even Doom, I mean, they were around for several years and they decided to disband. And I think the longest lasting team right now is Rise. That team I'm pretty sure will last for a while, but most teams come and go within a couple of years. They rebrand themselves and they try something else, but they don't have that. They don't just stick. So that's one dynamic that I think is really cool that you guys have. And what about you, Felix? What was your favorite moment for this past year?
I really, really, really enjoyed the Central and Grand Valley game in the Final Four. I feel like that was Dodgeball at its purest. It was a great game because Central did not play their best on Saturday, and going into the game, my friend who I was sitting next to said, I think this is going to be Grand Valley 5-0 on Central easy. And Central really showed up to play. And it was incredible watching the game unfold. And not only that, but like Kevin said, the atmosphere was great because both teams had a lot of fans in the stand. It didn't matter who got an out. There was a good cheer from the crowd, and that just amps everyone else up because then the next hit from the opposing team, their fans are going to try to cheer louder. And so it was, I mean, I hate using this term, but it was like a legitimate sporting event.
Right.
And it just created that excellent environment. And even for me, I didn't go to either of those schools. I don't have any type of tie to either of them. and it was just good dodgeball to watch.
Yeah, I invited some buddies that I knew from Grand Valley that play
You have friends?
spike ball. Yeah, it's a surprise to most people.
Oh, God, you said
Yeah, they
spike
play.
ball.
I don't know if you know what spike ball is, but they play that sport and
Sport.
like ultimate frisbee stuff like that. So I invited them to come. I was like, you guys should come watch nationals. You go to Grand Valley, it's right there. And they, so one of them came by and was sitting next to me during that game, and he goes, if I would have known dodgeball was this exciting, I would have tried out for the team freshman year. And I was just like, that's exactly the type of thing that we want to portray when we have tournaments. We want it to be something where all these other kids all of a sudden become excited about the sport just by watching us. So that was like a rewarding moment for me personally, but that's awesome that our league was able to have that type of an impact on people.
That is really cool, and I think you guys said it too last week. It's like, dang, I wish I'd known about this, a couple of years ago. And obviously, that's something that you want to I don't want to say prevent, but you want people to know it's available. And just like Ben Smart, you can just hop over to your university and boom, you're in it. But yeah, that's gotta be a good feeling. Just if I had known about this, like I would have done it and maybe ditched spike ball or when I don't know why I hate spike ball. I think it's just because like as a former league organizer, if it would kill me if I saw anyone doing something other than dodgeball. So like if we're trying to play pickup and half the team or half the group is playing basketball, like what the freak are you guys doing? Like we're paying money for this gym. Get your butts back here and play dodgeball. And I've seen it happen a few times with Andrew Ketchum busting out with spike ball. I'm like, dude, come on! Like we're trying to play dodgeball here. Stop stealing the crowd. It's bad enough that we have to compete with conventional sports. Then you bust out with this weird thing. But yeah, to each their own. So that was your favorite match. Does that constitute your favorite moment too, Felix, or do you have like another favorite moment for the entire season?
Actually, that one was my favorite moment for the season too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, a close second. There was a game at Akron earlier this year. I think it was in like October, and University of Kentucky, they had a pretty bad, or not bad, but they had a pretty drastic rebuilding year this year. And so it was really cool seeing their new members just getting used to the game. And I don't know why I like that, but I like when teams kind of have like a refreshing year because you get to see new people on the court and different personalities. You get to see how the team's going to look in the next few years. And I saw a lot of promise from that team. And as long as those freshmen and sophomores stick with it, I really feel like Kentucky could be a top 8 contender in the next year or two.
That's awesome. So it's unfortunate Jacob couldn't make this because I know this is his lane. But we're talking about like if these teams can just stick with it and develop themselves, and we want to catch people where they say, "Oh, I wish this was here during my time." I definitely wanted to get into recruiting a little bit and just see what it takes to make this happen. So last year, I think as a result of our conversation with you two, I got in contact with Jacob Lesky, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not a student anymore, but what could we do to bring the NCDA to ASU and ultimately like U of A down in Tucson?" Because I tried that in the past, and I think back in like 2006, I was able to get the University of Arizona to recognize us as a club, but we just could not find a venue. So there's a couple of hangups that I kind of wanted to talk about and just see like what the solutions are, or what resources do you guys provide to help people like me who want to help spread the NCDA our way, and not just here in Arizona, but just anywhere in the Northwest, in the West, or what have you. But can you kind of talk about that a little bit, or do you guys feel like we can go there, or do you want to like include Jacob on that, or how do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to some of it. I know that Jacob has his own ideas,
Right.
but I know what he does with the team. So a lot of starting up a club it's a big deal. There's so much that goes into it, and it's daunting. So a lot of people have the mentality of, I'll just start a club. And then they get into it and they realize how much work it is. And that's where it fails, is usually in the first few weeks. What Jacob is very, very good at is staying on top of people and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So even just having someone that's there as like a coach, just to say like, all right, you just did this. Great. Now here's your next step. And then Jacob will call you every day until you do your next step. So he's just a good person that nags others and make sure that they're doing what they can to start up the club. So once they've kind of broken that seal and they've had their first few practices and get, I would say a core 5 or 6 people is really important. So once you have those core 5 or 6 people that are coming to practice consistently, then that kind of spreads and other people will start to come more consistently. And then you have people that are just willing to compete and that want to compete. So Jacob is really good about staying on top of that and making sure that teams have the resources available to them, answering any questions, giving suggestions on how to run practices, certain drills, even like where to buy balls, where they're the cheapest online. If the sport club department has questions about dodgeball because it is so uncertain to a lot of people, he'll be happy to jump on a call with the sport club director and just kind of answer all of their questions. So really just him being a liaison it's crucial.
That was the word I was looking for, because I'm kind of typing up notes and just saying like, okay, you guys kind of provide like a roadmap. Like in order to establish a club, you need to do X, Y, Z, or talk to this person or talk to this department. And then it sounds like Jacob is able to kind of guide you through that, as you said, and just kind of steer you and make sure you stay on course. But is it having an actual college student, does that make or break whether or not this can happen? So for example, like the issue I had was we just couldn't seem to find an ASU student that was willing to work through us and through Jacob. So that was part of the hang up. And obviously there are kids that go to ASU that play in our foam and social leagues. And I don't think it would be a huge lift to try to convince one of them to do the footwork for us and connect them with Jacob. But are there any instances where you've had clubs started or at least kind of initiated by non-college students, i.e. old guys?
Yeah, Kevin, you want to talk to that one?
Well, yeah, I would mention this year, actually, we had a team, University of Cincinnati, that came to nationals that I'm not sure if you know who Wes Peters is. He also plays for Notorious.
Yep.
But he was a former NCDA player. He played for Central Michigan and Michigan State. And he graduated, got a job in Cincinnati. And he basically took it upon himself to put up some posters at each of those schools, or flyers that just said at Cincinnati and Xavier, the two main schools in the city of Cincinnati. And he just put up flyers that said, join the National Collegiate Dodgeball Association, make a club team at your school, blah, blah, blah. And it ended up working with Cincinnati, and they had a team that made it to nationals. They've won a few games now, so they're a pretty successful first-year team. But yeah, anything like that can work, and I think it just comes down to having the initiative to put out flyers and understand what the next steps are once you have someone that does contact you. Or even I think a bigger thing would just be if there's someone that can be at that school, say Arizona State, for example, and going to those like the campus life night or whatever it's called at that school, where all the different campus organizations have a table set up and all the new freshmen walk by and put their email in on a laptop if it's an organization that they might be interested in. That's a huge way to recruit. It's one of the main ways that our colleges recruit to their students. But yeah, even if someone's able to get an okay from that school to set up a table and they can work with the NCDA to be able to get that, that would be a huge success. You would get so many different names, so many different emails, and then as long as you can secure a gym time, you can set up the first practice or tryout or whatever you want to call it and go from there. And I know in the past, Grand Valley's gotten hundreds of people to put in their email and show up to this first dodgeball night, and then go from there and see who's more interested and who's not. But I think that it just comes down to having people in different regions that are willing to do that, whether it's an alumni or people like you who are just interested in improving the sport and pushing it forward. That's the type of thing that is going to help us grow as a league at a faster rate than we already are with the type of resources that we have.
And it also depends on the university too. Some universities are like, they're all in on club sports and they want clubs to succeed. So like Cincinnati has been great. The Cincinnati club sport director is actually a friend of mine from Western Kentucky. And he actually was the head referee for the 2011 national championship game when Wes Peters was on the central team that won. And so when Wes reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm interested in starting a dodgeball club," this guy was all in. He's like, "All right, great. Here are a few students that I know might be interested. So let's kind of attack it from there." And then you have other universities like Midland University in Nebraska. They had a pretty involved year, I think last year or the year before, and where like their university, like from their official university Twitter, they were tweeting out about dodgeball, and so like those types of universities are excellent because that just shows you get the support, you have people invested in it from a higher level than just the students, and they're willing to work with people in the community, alumni, anything like that want to help. But then you also have other universities like Minnesota and Virginia Tech who are just like throwing up red tape all over the place, and it's tough getting things going.
You're bringing back awful nightmares of my previous job where, we sell a subscription as a service, audiovisual mnemonic platform to help med students and nursing students like solidify information that they got to remember. And our part of what makes or breaks us was our ability to actually get on campus and present to the students, and we'd have to like latch on to a student who is going to procure a room for us and basically let us pitch, a sales pitch to the students. And some universities, like, we can only allow you to come during this time because we have to be, fair. We can't be partial. Or somebody like, yeah, come on, feed my kids pizza and talk them up. And some students or some schools are like on lockdown. Like, you just good luck getting through there. And you guys are making me realize it's not as hard as I thought it was. I wouldn't be just some creepy dude in a van saying, "Hey kids, you want to come with me and play dodgeball?" I'm kind of. I want to talk to you now.
You're gonna be a creepy guy in like a Camry instead, right?
Yeah, there's a meme of Steve Buscemi with a backwards cap and a skateboard. He's like, "How do you do, fellow kids?" And yeah, I can try to be like that. Come with me to play dodgeball. But I might hit up Wes Peters and just be like, "Hey man, like how'd you pitch yourself?" Because it's one thing to sell something to the students where you kind of get that like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you. You're just another vendor. You're just after the students' money," versus, "Hey, I want to start a club and enrich their lives a little bit." And being that I've been playing dodgeball for quite some time, I would say I'm kind of an expert and I can talk about it. So I will have to continue this conversation offline and try again. But for anybody listening at this point, yeah, it doesn't sound like it's too hard. I mean, even if, especially for league organizers, I mean, I can't think of a better way to pull and bring in people into your rec leagues than college students. And if you can kind of figure out a way to partner with the NCDA or kind of utilize that, set their club up, but also use them as a feeder system or just as a way to get on campus and advertise, it's like a win-win situation. I don't know why you wouldn't do it. Are there instances of that where somebody that owns or runs a regular adult, for lack of better words, social league, also running congruent with or concurrently with an NCDA chapter? Like, do you guys know if that's been a thing in the past, or can players kind of go back and forth? Can they play in my Thursday night fun league but still have their NCDA sanctioned practices? Definitely.
I mean, that's what happens in Grand Rapids. Is some of those kids will play in the I guess the dodgeball night that they have there that isn't connected with Grand Valley at all. So
there's no taboo or no restraint from that.
No, and especially over the summer when it's not even in season, or maybe it's a part of the season where maybe they don't get as many practices per week. It's something that they'll go to still. I think bottom line is being able to have a college team in your city is going to help the sport of dodgeball in that city significantly. Both right then during the first year of its existence, but especially over time. Just thinking about Grand Rapids again as the example, so many of the people that go to the Grand Rapids Dodgeball Night are just people that used to play for Grand Valley. Just various kids that stuck around in the area and still love the sport of dodgeball. They don't go to the college practices anymore, but they still are active in the dodgeball community.
Nice.
Within their city.
And then even like playing other...
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say even like playing other forms of dodgeball. So like in Columbus, for some reason, foam is bigger here. There's a couple of Ohio State players that I play with in a foam league, and one of them is Catherine Mays, who Kevin, you'll remember, she was the one with the goggles that dominated the women's game.
Oh yeah.
She agreed that playing foam in the off season helps her with her accuracy in rubber, because foam travels so unpredictably that learning how to control the foam throw does translate pretty well to controlling a rubber ball.
Yeah, I'm starting to like foam more and more, but when I initially saw it, and we kind of talked about this last week, is like, okay, at the end of the day, even though I hate foam, it sucks. I'm still playing dodgeball, so I'll just take that. And then as I was playing more and more, I was like, okay, maybe my throwing isn't as great, my catching sucks, but at least I'm dodging, and I can kind of take away from that and slowly build off of that. And I'm thinking about, okay, we have foam going on, we have no sting. That's a primary thing right now in Phoenix. In fact, that's like the only thing that exists. But the students, assuming they actually do join, they would probably start from pinch, but they have the option to play foam on their off nights. And again, it just points back to, at the end of the day, are people playing dodgeball? Yes. Okay, then dodgeball wins. Doesn't really necessarily matter how, as long as it's not cloth. That's when it goes bad. But I guess that was another question too. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking out loud too, because I'm really thinking about this. But let's say we do get a chapter set up, would they have to play 11-on-11 pinch 8.5? Like, that's pretty much a requirement, right? Is that fair to say?
So it's not really. It's only required if you play another NCDA school by NCDA rules. If you want to, Oregon State and Gonzaga, they're in the NCDA. Technically, they've played against each other with NCDA rules, but they play in other leagues. They play no sting and I think foam also.
Right.
And that's totally fine. We have University of Illinois, or Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. They play foam, but they'll hop in an NCDA game every once in a while. That's totally fine. I don't really care. More dodgeball is better dodgeball. But if you're playing in an NCDA sanctioned event, you just have to play by our rules.
Right. But let's get you established first, then we'll worry about, the specifics later, unless you guys want to come to the nationals. Yep. All right.
Yeah, and Stevenson University, Chris DeJesus started that club up, and they did the exact same thing. They were a foam club, but they would still come in and play by the NCDA rule set when they would play against our other teams. So, and it helped their club, just joining the NCDA and having that option as well, helped their club grow too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so. And I also imagine, like, if I do reach out to the director or athletic, whoever it would be, and I say, like, oh yeah, we're actually part of the NCDA, and they see this massive organization that probably that couldn't hurt you. I imagine that just helps even more.
Yeah, definitely.
Dang. Okay.
And then even better, like if you're starting a new team, so the NCDA does have annual dues, but for your first 2 years as an NCDA team, we don't charge dues because we know that the money needs to go towards building the club. And so that's also a benefit. Like, it's literally free to join the NCDA. It's the only stipulation is you have to play by our rules when you play in our events. But if you want to play in other events, go for it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, like I said, I'm going to have to revisit that conversation with Jacob and see what I can do on my end, just because again, from an old man's perspective, I just want to see it grow, and I want to see replacements. I want to see when I'm done playing, I want like 5 or 6 players to take my spot. It's the only way it's going to continue to thrive. Well, I appreciate that. And that was definitely, not really so much a recap portion, but I definitely wanted to talk about that in case, people that are listening are interested in, okay, how do we bring this great thing to our area? So I hope that, if anything, maybe has more people reach out to you guys or answers any questions that they have or helps with any reservations. But actually,
man, it would be sweet to have a West Coast region that's just booming.
I know.
In the NCDA. That would be amazing.
It's there. I mean, just thinking about the potential.
I think that like just the amount of support that if a couple of the people that are in that dodgeball community over there in Los Angeles area made teams at their schools, if they were college students, I think it'd be awesome just because of the amount of support that they would have. They'd probably get so many fans at their games. It would be so cool to see it grow there.
But and then there's some universities out here that have so much funding that they would fly the team out there. So like Towson University and DePaul University, they both get a ton of funding every year, and it would be excellent to see those teams go out west and basically bring up the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm gonna dye my hair and just go back to school. Go for my master's or something. I could probably talk about this more, but I will. If you're listening, you even have like an inkling of interest, I would strongly encourage, even plead, just to reach out to Jacob and Kevin and Felix and just see what you can do. And if all it is just an introduction, hey, I know a guy, talk to this person, who knows what that might accomplish. So. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. And
if you're just the coach at the school, you still you get free dodgeball out of that. You get to go to their practices and everything if you're recognized as the coach. So, I mean, that's another incentive right there.
So you get to play.
I'm a coach at Ohio State, and so I get free access to their gym all year round. And normally it's like I think it's $75 a month if you're just a community member and you want gym membership there. But so I get to not only play dodgeball with them, but if I want to just go work out, I can do that too for free.
This thing is selling itself. You get to play dodgeball.
Doesn't look like Felix uses that.
I do not.
but he could though.
I'm getting a little fat.
but he could if he wanted to. It's there. It's available to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Felix.
That's okay. I know it. I made the joke earlier, so you just stole it.
I mean, we're getting like the biggest rivalry that I know of between two teams. Like obviously, there's got to be some jabs. You guys behaved really well last week, so
that's fair.
Alrighty, so yeah, I definitely wanted to, like I said, spend some time talking about like recruiting and how that would look and how that would work, but. I did want to go into one more thing, and Hunter brought this up. He mentioned, when I kind of asked him what's next for the NCDA, he mentioned like a leadership conference, and he kind of hit like the high level aspects of it. But Felix, do you kind of want to go into that just real quick before we move on or wrap up?
Yeah, so like one of the incentives that we want to do to bring people to this leadership conference, because we really feel like it's going to be of value. You'll learn how to better run your clubs, how to stay organized, how to do better recruiting, fundraising, reach out and get sponsorships, all of that jazz. But one of the incentives to get people there is we're going to host a tournament too. It's going to be a different style of dodgeball than what's currently out there. It'll be close to the NCDA, but we're looking at playing 9 versus 9 or 10 versus 10. We haven't really decided on that yet. I believe on a full-size basketball court. We may cut it down a little bit on the width, but we want to play as close to NCDA style as possible, but with a different spin on it. But one cool thing is we want to do registration as teams of 6. So a team of 6, like the Columbus Gamecocks, will register, and also Cleveland State will register, and Cleveland State University will bring 6 people. What we'll do is we'll throw all of those teams of 6, whether they're NCDA teams or elite teams, into a hat and then draw names out of a hat. Well, those 2 teams that we pair up together will form a team, and they'll be asked to play with each other for the rest of the day. So it could potentially be like Miami University with Dynasty, or Ohio State University with Michigan State, Boosh with Riot. Like we're really happy for this, because I feel like it's going to be a new style of ball, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that the NCDA captains were really going to go for it, because in July when we host this, they're really starting to itch for more dodgeball. They're missing it. They want to get ready for the next season. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
And where's this going to be at?
We're still working on the location. Gotcha. It's split between 2 different places. So it's either going to be at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, or University of Akron in Akron, Ohio. And that's because it's close to the geographic center of the NCDA. And there hasn't been a elite style tournament in Ohio this year. We had one last year in Zanesville, Ohio. So we wanted to kind of bring that back and get some elite exposure, as well as NCDA, and kind of introduce some of the NCDA captains who aren't playing elite to the elite players. And then also kind of do what we did with you just in the last segment, where we're introducing elite players who are not from the NCDA to the NCDA, and see how they can get involved.
Nice. See, look at that. It's working out really well, Tyler. To charged questions and accusations of not playing along. I'm kidding.
Yeah, we're all friends.
Yeah, I would go.
Except Kevin. Kevin sucks.
I don't know, man. I'm Team Kevin. I think he's a really swell guy.
All right, sorry guys, I gotta go.
I am out. So that's awesome. So, yeah, so I'll look forward to that in July, and then also I think you just to kind of retouch on what Hunter said. In addition, there's going to be like advice on how to potentially run the clubs, how to run practices. He even said like how to look at film and apply it to practice, and how to like actually view film, which is crazy that we're at that point now. But sounds like a pretty awesome event. And I guess at this point, I really just want to kind of get your final thoughts. I mean, just kind of looking back at everything, looking back at this past weekend, this past season. And we'll start with you, Kevin. Like, what are your, I guess, like, what do you want to leave off of, at least with this episode?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having us on. We appreciate it, talking about our league and dodgeball in general. But it was an amazing season for the NCDA, and every single year Nationals comes around, and after Nationals, I become even more convinced by just how much success the sport of dodgeball can have, and how much success college dodgeball specifically can have, just after seeing how awesome the event was and how many people are so passionate about the sport. So we're kind of riding a high right now. I know we're exhausted. Felix is definitely exhausted the week after Nationals, but we're so pumped just by where the league is at right now and where we're headed. So It's an awesome time to be involved with dodgeball, and yeah, we're excited to move on to playing elite now. Now that the NCDA is officially over, we can start focusing more on that for the rest of the summer. But yeah.
Awesome, man. So you're exhausted, but in a good way.
In a good way, definitely.
Good exhausted, for sure. Awesome. How about you, Felix? Final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Really, I don't know. This is weird for me because this is my last season in a leadership position with the NCDA, and so I'm happy to be leaving it. Where the organization's at, I feel like over the last 9-10 years, I've put a lot into it, and I just hope that other people are are going to step up and continue on the path, because like Kevin said, we're at a really exciting time for the NCDA. We're seeing alumni staying involved more so than we ever have before, showing up to games, showing their support for their alma mater, kind of celebrating that legacy that you were talking about earlier, Steve. And I just I'm excited for the future of dodgeball, and I think that the NCDA is in a great position to kind of be the feeder for the rest of dodgeball in the United States. And so as long as we keep getting continued support from the universities, from alumni, just from interested dodgeball parties like yourself, I really feel like dodgeball in the United States is going to continue to flourish and be in a better position. So I guess my closing thoughts are just to like keep playing, and more dodgeball is better dodgeball. It doesn't matter which version you feel is better. Try them all out. Don't hate so much on the different ball types, except cloth.
Yep.
And and just I don't know. We should keep striving for that oneness mentality, and just know that every form of dodgeball is helping others, as long as people continue to have open minds and are willing to try out new things.
For sure. Yeah, well said. I mean, I've said my piece about legacy, and if you don't feel it now, as you get older, you'll understand. I'll just leave it at that. But Kevin, real quick, where do we find the NCDA? I just heard about this podcast for the first time. How do I get more information? How do I follow you guys? What outlets do you have? What content is there? How do I just stay in touch?
Good question. So check us out on Facebook, National Collegiate Dodgeball Association, Twitter, College Dodgeball, or at NCDA Dodgeball, and then YouTube as well, NCDA Dodgeball, and of course, check out the website to see all the cool content we have, especially in the coming weeks, ncdadodgeball.com. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff coming out post-nationals, with all the All-American team, the All-Nationals team, top recruiting classes in the country this year, all-region teams, stuff like that. We're going to have a lot of different things coming out. And then, of course, make sure to check out Mad City's Twitch this Saturday, because they will be doing a rebroadcast of Championship Sunday from Nationals, and they're going to be cutting it down, trimming out sort of the breaks in between. But if you're wondering about college dodgeball and you want to see more, there is no better place to go see what we're all about than to check out that rebroadcast. We're going to have more info on that coming soon, but Mad City's Twitch channel is where they're going to share it. And that's going to be an awesome thing to see too. So,
and I just want to give a huge shout out again to Eric Boyer from Mad City, and then Brian. I cannot pronounce his last name. Brian from yeah. I'm going to try. I think it's Kakashio. I doubt that's it.
That sounds like fun.
But whatever. But yeah, so Brian from Mainstream Media, their teams did an excellent job this weekend. They blew us out of the water, and they helped us actually show what college dodgeball is all about. Just the different angles they were able to hit. We have a camera that's able to get the entire court in one shot, which has never happened before. And so it's absolutely incredible. They did a phenomenal job, and I'm really excited for their product and the rebroadcasting on Saturday. So everyone, please check out Mad City's Twitch this Saturday and watch some college dodgeball. Some of the best games to look out for are the Final Four match, Grand Valley versus Central Michigan, and then the final game, Grand Valley versus Towson University. But really, every game that they showed was really solid.
For sure. Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming back on, for your time last week and this week, and then also all the banter in the group chat. It's awesome learning more about it, and obviously I'm a very monotone person, but I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for the NCDA and how we can bring that my way, and just get to that point where dodgeball is flourishing even more so than it is already. And again, Felix, we know about the dark days, so we want to get as far away from those as possible, and just heck, if it's foam, rubber, pinch, 11 on 11, 2 on 2, whatever. At the end of the day, if you're playing dodgeball, it's a good day. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much, and let's go ahead and end the interview there. Alrighty, so that was basically part 2 of the National Collegiate Dodgeball Association championships that took place last weekend, and I don't even know what to say. I'm bummed I could not be there in person to watch this happen. I'm already looking forward to the next one. If I'm not there in person, I will absolutely be glued to my television or stream or wherever I can see to watch these colleges and see how much they've developed over the course of a year, and see if Towson's going to be able to stay on top. It was incredible getting to know these teams, understanding the dynamics and the nuances between them, and just really giving me a reason to care. The fact that some of these teams have been around for well past most elite-based teams now is also pretty incredible, and the ability to go to these events and see and say, this is my alma mater, like this is my team that I played on 3-4 years ago, is pretty powerful, especially with elite, because teams are constantly shifting rosters or shifting brand. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just the NCDA provides a sense of longevity that I think people my age probably really appreciate at this point, especially after all we've been through with the dodgeball world and its development since 2005. And anyway, huge congratulations to Towson. Huge thank you to Hunter Ford and Felix Perroni, Kevin Bailey, and Jacob Lesky for coming on and helping me understand what was going to go down this past weekend a lot more, setting the preface for the coming week, and just being great sports and just really helping me understand the NCDA that much more. I'm really excited to see what I can do on my end to see if we can get some NCDA action down here in Arizona. I know it's been attempted before. I definitely tried last year and hit a brick wall, but I want to move around that wall and figure it out. So anyway, if you're still listening, thank you so much for your questions as always, for your support, for your feedback, for your encouragements. I love everything about this podcast, from concepts to final product. This has been a complete joy, and being able to expand into the NCDA has been very, very awesome for me. So I'll leave it at that. So if you're still listening, have a great rest of your evening, a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Okay, 3, 2, all right. Let me hide my video. Also distracted looking at myself.